even though he did all that before that was a talking point,
Right.
do you think retroactively Hideo Kojima will say sort of ibterdupted our... I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Hold on, let me just... let's roll it back. Just
Rewind
that word.
So do you think that Hideo Kojima was kind of the one that sort of ibterdupted... Welcome to the Power Up Brothers podcast, where our points are the same and our voices don't matter. This is Deacon.
We don't really introduce ourselves
You're
anymore.
doing it now.
Hi, I'm Deacon.
And this is Sny.
I'm Lorenzo. It was my oil the whole time.
This is Gort.
Hello.
And I am Flingmas. Today we're going to talk about video games.
Yeah.
Are you sure? We've never done that before.
Wait, that's new for
We're going to
us.
talk about video games.
okay.
It's a new
Listen,
thing for the podcast.
we're going to talk about video games, much to my chagrin. Okay.
We're going to talk about video games, and do we still think they'll be relevant in the 90s?
No.
Oh, gosh.
No, once the 80s are over.
Hold on. You know what I'm
We're
just
done.
now realizing?
We're done.
Does anybody else hear their own
I was
voice
going to ignore
playing
it.
through something?
Could you
I was
pick up
gonna
those
ignore it.
headphones that are sitting
There's-
there, Ethan? Do you
There's
see 'em?
definitely something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait.
Just killed the audio.
Oh, that's
on 'em.
what. Hello. Oh, here we go. This
Oh,
is the high
interesting.
production values of the
Yeah.
Power Up
You've come to
Brothers
expect.
podcast that you come
The
to
highest
expect.
production.
We're back in our tiny little.
We're back, baby.
I know we
rancid
really
we're back.
misled you with the
Yeah.
blanket
Yeah,
and the
you-
poor lighting.
I
Last-
missed it.
I mean,
I missed the blanket and the terrible lighting, cramped space, and the fear of never being
listen,
relevant.
Yeah.
Listen, last
Guys, welcome back to Michael B's apartment.
I was about to say last week, you know, we had
Yeah,
an
we weren't here
interesting
last
we had
week.
an interesting
You know that
environment.
if you watch the pod.
We had an interesting environment and an interesting visual.
We had a progressive producer.
We had a
Yeah.
very progressive producer who was, you know,
We
doing their
replaced our
job.
straight
It was
white
really
male
great.
producer.
Yeah.
Do you know that with all of her restraint, she was not Snapchatting with
No.
hot girls?
No.
And you know,
Huge mistake.
oh well, no, for her,
Huge
for her,
mistake.
she has the opportunity to. I'm not talking about you. You know, and it was really too high production values, and I said,
Yeah.
We got to go back.
When she found out we couldn't afford to pay her, she was gone.
Viewers, I am your.
We had to get the
advocate.
classy
I'm
escort.
your advocate, viewers. I told these guys, I said, not around here, not in my house.
No.
We are not doing anything that's fun, anything that's
Get
of
it
good
out of here.
quality.
Yeah.
Get back in
This
here.
Why
is
would
the
we?
Dirt Broke podcast.
Yeah.
Right. We don't go to nice locations.
the
No,
Dirt Bros
no.
podcast, and it's
podcast.
we don't have any money,
Yeah.
and everything's falling apart. I'm worried this table will buckle under the weight of my right elbow.
It's going
Definitely
to.
will.
So
It definitely
going to.
will.
I had this genius idea to write down news topics, and they're on their phone that's recording.
Wow,
So, cool.
man,
Good job.
that was really
Let's see.
smart of you.
Yeah.
You
Do
should
you have
like,
to remember any
did
of
you?
them?
Yeah.
Did you
I think I remember all of them.
Did you
thank
think maybe
goodness,
like
so.
you could email those to like some kind
No.
of unified
Wait-
chat?
wait
that
a
we have
second.
or something.
So we should see at the end of the session how many of them you got.
How
right.
many of you
That
can
would be
remember?
Okay,
great.
yeah,
I'll
Did
put
you
it up on
remember
the
all
screen.
of your
Yeah,
things
I'll
you
put it
wrote
up on
down?
screen.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do that in post.
That's a good
I
segue
put it in post.
to the news. That's just going to be our bumper now. All that work I put into real bumpers.
Hey, this is so much. Mine's so much better.
Yeah, so
All right.
Interesting
Tell me what's
week.
going on. I've been unplugged, so I have no news because
Well,
I've
unplugged.
spent the last week like really unplugged. So.
I have been plugged like you wouldn't believe. I don't know. You know, I was thinking about this because I figured you'd do. You know, you want to do news because sometimes that'd be-
News? Oh, I thought we were doing
Occasionally.
news.
Yeah, some-
we're not
yeah,
going to
sorry.
speak on
Not
one we don't
news.
speak of.
Sometimes we.
news,
Yeah,
yeah.
we're not. If
No.
somebody
Michael B is not
if,
on camera.
You can't
You don't
prove
know.
it.
if somebody brings that up, I'm walking out. So
Me too. I'm going out that window.
I'm go out the window.
Thing
I'm so
the
tired
one
of talking.
I speak of.
The one
Yes.
I'm most excited about is by the time you're watching this, it'll have already been out. But in a few days, Mario Party Jamboree's coming
Oh,
out.
wait, nice.
Oh.
Very cool.
That's
The
Uh-huh.
new
interesting.
Mario Party, first one in.
I'm only
What
going
was
to
the
play
other
that with you if you play another game with me.
Okay.
which is the game I'm going to talk about for news that's coming out sooner.
Okay.
All right.
Listen,
tomorrow.
every time
Yeah.
I play Mario Party with you,
Right.
you cheat.
I
You
don't
cheat every time we played. I say,
Yeah.
"Hey, I don't really play this game that often. What does that do?" And you go, "Oh,
my God.
it's-
I
this
think
thing
it
it's
does
a power
this
up.
thing.
You should
I
go
think
grab
it helps
And I
you.
grab it and I immediately drop to last place and die. And Bowser comes in. He like takes my wife and
I
runs
assume,
off.
I
Yeah.
assume
Yeah.
you know how to
Um,
play the game.
Well,
which is my
that's
fault.
that's the
Yeah,
right.
that is your
okay,
fault.
that is your fault because I
my
literally
fault.
say to you, "I don't know
I
how
don't
to
know
play
how to
the
play
game.
this
What does
game."
that
Here-
do?"
Okay, but you understand the problem. This is gonna get. I'm sorry. We have to discuss this real quick.
Go.
The problem with our dynamic of Mario Party is that we've been
Yeah.
playing Mario Party for 25 years
Against
together.
our will.
Yeah.
At least with here
Devin's
myself.
been forcing
I,
us to play Mario Party for 25 years.
I literally used to.
I have been okay, and mostly Mario Party 2. So despite
yes.
the best one.
despite almost 30 years of Mario Party 2 playing
Yeah.
together,
Yeah.
you still don't know how to play Mario Party 2,
No.
and I don't
Yeah.
understand how we
That's
will
a-
literally
that's
we will be
pretty-
playing
yeah.
a mini game that I have been playing longer than I have been able to speak.
There's not. Yeah.
And Ethan will be like,
Am I expected to remember
How
the
am I-
minutiae of
how-
a game?
he goes, how am I supposed to know what this bumper ball game is?
Yeah.
How do I bump these balls?
Wait, I want to
You know?
take this time,
No.
30
So I
years
don't get
later, Ethan, to apologize that you can't play a baby game and that I have
No,
to
no.
explain it to you.
I will
every
destroy you
time.
at the mini games. No, it's that like literally the last time I played it, they was playing a Mario Party. I don't remember which one. Wasn't 2. And there was this Bowser token in a mini game that you could get items, and there were like
Okay.
6 items, and one of them was a Bowser token. And I said, "What does the Bowser token do?" And someone went, "Oh, you use it, and Bowser like chases one of your enemies around the map." And I thought, "Okay, I can get that one then." And I got it. Bowser comes and chases you around the map. Is what it does. And I'm like, how am I supposed to know? I asked. You cheat.
No,
Every time.
I will say in the old ones, it was a little
Every
hard to
single
tell. There's like a
time.
Bowser phone and a Bowser head, Bowser bomb.
Cheater. That's some cheater.
Devin,
You know what?
counterpoint. Do you know your own social security number?
You know what? Listen,
Yeah, of course.
let's compromise. We're just gonna say that Devin is a cheater. Ethan is
That's-
bad at Mario
okay,
Party.
yeah, I'll compromise.
Guilty.
We're
That's
just
a
gonna,
good habit.
we're gonna
We'll
compromise
say that.
and actually
Ethan
talk
is
about the
sundowning
news.
hard.
No, Jamboree looks really good. It
Yeah.
looks like they're finally adopting the Mario Kart philosophy of like, it's a new game with new maps, but we'll bring old maps back.
Yeah.
Previously, it was like they would put old maps in it if it was like a collection
Yeah,
Yeah.
game. But it was like old maps are
I think
for.
Superstars was so good that they were like, "Oh, we should be."
There's
resting on
merit
our
to
laurels.
redoing. Yeah.
Will
We
this
should
will
give
this
up.
have a real online multiplayer, or are they gonna
It
completely
has
screw us
almost-
over
it-
with?
It's almost like
No way.
It's almost like Nintendo's own Fall Guys. Like it has all these different party modes online with randoms.
Okay,
I think
well,
Quinn's asking
like-
about
no, 'cause-
how well it works.
Not that
what
it's
it
anything
works.
like
no,
Fall
no,
Guys,
no,
but-
not just not
Because
how,
it was there in
'cause-
Superstars.
Yeah, but no. Do you remember? Okay, do you remember
It's just laggy.
Superstars had a good.
they had? I think it was the very first Mario Party they released on the Switch,
Super Mario Party.
Super Mario
Oh
Party.
yeah, it had. A
You remember
terrible
how it,
online?
maybe the worst
Abysmal
online that,
online,
that
really
Nintendo
bad.
ever did. It's you can
Abysmal.
play only special like online specific,
Modes.
You couldn't even play
modes.
with your
And-
friends or randoms or anybody.
It was
like,
just-
it was terrible.
It was
was bad.
horrible.
It literally,
But
they
then-
they released an update that made its online great, and then announced a new Mario Party that had like
And you're like,
fantastic
what is the
online.
point? What is the point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
right.
I'm like,
Okay,
so,
They're getting
but
there
the
slowly.
the new online reviewers say works flawlessly.
That's good.
Nice.
It's like up to there are modes with like up to 15 people.
I don't believe
all, like,
reviewers.
competing.
They're all paid for shills.
I only
Tune
You
in
believe,
for
can
my
trust it.
review of.
I actually only believe reviewers because why would
really?
you lie if you're making so much money? I mean,
That's a good point.
imagine if you
Yeah.
lie.
I only believe Devin about
I'd
Mario
stop
Party.
lying-
It's led me to
I'd
nothing
stop-
but disaster.
I'd stop
back.
lying
Yeah,
to
you brought
people
it
on
back.
this podcast if they
Yeah.
would donate to
I was
my
about to say,
Patreon.
Yeah, if we-
donate to
yeah.
the Patreon and we won't lie to you.
Yeah.
Guys,
Okay?
join our
Not a
exclusive
moment.
Patreon tier where you don't get lied
You don't
to.
get lied to.
If you give us $50 every month, we'll tell you something that's true.
We'll tell you the
Yeah.
truth.
We'll tell you something
At
that's
least
true.
one thing.
Yeah.
One thing.
Yeah,
All right.
one thing.
So you
Sorry.
have a bunch of news, but Ty, you have one piece of news. So why don't you,
You
drop
said
yours?
Yeah,
there's
let's-
also a
let's
game
mix it
coming
up.
out.
Yeah.
Tomorrow is the release of MechWarrior 5 Clans, a game that I'm
Wow,
very
okay.
very much looking
I'm,
forward to.
I'm excited that that's
Very
the game I have to
nice.
play because I love MechWarrior.
That's the game you have to play with.
I thought it was gonna be
It has a
like-
co-op campaign.
I thought it was going to be Rotten Void or something like that.
That's
like,
it. Void Rot, the game
Oh,
we talked about.
Void
I like to
Rot.
shout out games on this show because they deserve games that deserve shouting
Yeah.
out.
Right.
You like to
not
do it
the
in the
big
sense that
ones,
you have
like
done
Mario
it
Party.
one time.
I have done it one time. I shouted out, I feel like Gravity Circuit when I finally remember the name.
Doing something one time on this podcast means you've done it like for
A
80%
large
of
percent,
our,
yeah.
20% of our podcasts contain shout-outs.
Contain shout-outs from Ty.
I actually haven't pre-ordered MechWarrior 5 Clans because the previews for it look too good, and I don't believe them.
I will say if it's built off of MechWarrior 5's the original MechWarrior 5, it'll probably be good.
It's an Unreal 5 version because
Yeah.
MechWarrior 5 was an Unreal 4 game.
So
I'm
like
sure they're porting
destructible
some
environments
things
were
over.
insane and
They
fun.
were crazy.
It was insane.
This
It's like-
looks even better, but also the like cutscenes and character models now look incredible, and it makes me go, they're tricking me somehow. It can't look this good
Unreal 5 does look
on a
amazing,
tiny
though.
budget.
It does look amazing.
I don't believe it.
I'm
but,
probably gonna get it on
if it doesn't.
PS5 just
Well, that's
because I
pretty-
want to see the.
And this is online or
It's online. Yeah.
okay, nice.
It's an online game.
Okay, that's cool.
it
just like
looks
5.
great.
I think 5 was too.
5 was as well.
Yeah, okay.
All those
Nice.
times we
Nice.
played it together.
Yeah, all twice.
very
Both
very
times.
cool.
Did we
played
ever
it
play
together.
it more than once?
I think we played it like
the
once or
only
twice.
the only news I've got to share is that I started playing a video game.
Oh my
God.
gosh.
What?
I started playing a video.
Quentin
Wait.
news.
Let me rephrase. I started playing a video game that was released recently.
Oh my gosh.
What?
In the podcast.
I know this
In
is
the
this is really
podcast,
this
it's
is really a
over.
big deal. I
It's
started
over.
playing Jedi Survivor, the
nice.
Star Wars
Okay.
game. I started playing Jedi
Okay, gotcha.
Survivor. Finally, after putting it off, I've had it, but now I'm playing it. And guess what?
Michael
That's
B doesn't
perfectly
like what-
timed.
Guess what? I don't love it, but I modded it to where the main character isn't a redhead anymore, and I've been enjoying it somewhat more. And I still don't really love how it
Racism
plays.
against the Irish is well done.
I know.
I don't really love how it plays, and I don't care for the story. I don't really like Star Wars very much, and
Right.
so just like the aesthetic.
So of
you
course
know?
that's why you picked that game.
That's
so I
naturally
started
why you
playing-
picked
Not
that
Elden
one.
Ring, a better version of that game.
I don't know what those words are together. What you just said, I don't know what that is, and I'm not getting involved in any kind of thing you're talking about there. But I did start playing a new game, and I'm
Well, we're
I'm
proud
not-
of you just for the
cool.
recency.
I'm not very far into
You
it.
know,
That's
But
like
self-sabotage aside, we're all very
Yeah.
proud
Did
of
you play Fallen Order or?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
played that once.
Did you like Fallen Order?
I didn't love it. I
So
didn't.
naturally you were like, I'm gonna give him another
gonna
shot.
give him
I
another
didn't love it,
shot
but
at the
you know
sequel.
what
Another
game?
$60 shot.
I didn't love it, but I loved
There's
the game.
no way he paid $60.
There's no way you paid anything.
Let's not get into that.
It's funny that you say you started that. I read recently they removed the Nouveau from Star Wars Jedi Survivor.
They did
That's
remove.
what
We talked about it
Oh,
on this
actually,
podcast.
I think I actually brought that up because the performance improved
It
drastically.
drastically
People
on
said.
computer, yeah.
No, I didn't really love the first game, but I did love the game Kenna Bridge of Spirits, and that is a
That's a recent game.
Well,
Yeah.
sort of.
I mean, like,
20,
fairly.
20 something.
It's this
2010
decade.
area.
That's
Yeah.
better than you
This
usually
era,
do.
yeah.
I don't even think it is this decade. Is it?
Kenna?
Yeah, isn't it? Is it? I think
Yeah,
it. Oh
our
yeah, I guess you're right.
producer's
It's
gonna
like
look it up.
2015,
It's
something
definitely
like that.
post-COVID.
Yeah, something like that. Anyways, the point is, I liked that, and that is a Souls-like game.
It's like
And-
baby Souls-like.
And then this game, I was told was
I knew it
21.
was
So
post-COVID.
and this is a Souls-like game, and I said,
Yeah.
well, I like Kenna.
Yeah.
I didn't really like the previous one, so I'm gonna play this one, and I'm playing it.
Cool.
Quentin
Uh,
news. That's
so Quentin
huge.
news.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah, pretty good.
there's some leaks have suggested that Nintendo. So if you're unfamiliar, Nintendo has offered to Nintendo Switch Online members classic controllers based on their old controllers, but are fully functional on Switch. They added things like capture features, additional buttons. So they've had NES, Super NES, Sega Genesis, and N64 so far.
Sounds like GameCube is next.
Yeah, GameCube has kind of been hinted at. We've seen some leakers are talking about. I'm not super detailed on it, but it's just some like controller boards that would line up with GameCube, and it's from Nintendo. We also, maybe the biggest news in the
I think we were
last
about to,
one that I remember.
I think we were about to say the same thing.
Nintendo's new console.
The alarm clock.
Oh, I did. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, no.
Let's talk about that first.
Let me just say
The real
okay,
Switch
so
2 was the alarm.
Let me
the
just
whole
tell you this
time.
right now.
I did
To
hear
anyone
about
who
this
doesn't know about this,
Yeah.
that Nintendo is releasing a $100 alarm clock that
Not releasing. It is.
It's out.
It's out.
It requires.
And Devin will get
It's currently in transit to my home.
It requires.
Yeah, of
Oh,
course
you're a
it is.
fool.
Please
You're a
say that.
fool,
Of course
sir.
it
No, I'm
No,
serious.
of course
Yeah.
it is. They
It's on
released.
the way.
They released a $100 alarm clock that requires Switch Online
Best
functionality.
debt I've ever
And
gone
let me just
into.
tell you this
How-
right now.
How are you still married?
Let me just tell you this
She's
right
a patient
now.
woman.
$100
Yep.
alarm clock.
Right.
Nintendo Switch Online requirements.
Right.
Nintendo is the worst company ever. They're the worst
You want to know
company
something
on
great? You
planet
want to know something
Earth.
great?
But
Doesn't connect to Pokemon Sleep.
But
No,
it's
it doesn't.
No, of course not. But you know what?
I don't
But
know
you know
who
what?
needs to hear this on the internet. Nintendo
does not
isn't
make Pokemon.
Pokemon.
I know.
No,
They don't
but
have
you-
anything to do
but
with
they're-
it.
Sleep.
Yeah, but they.
And it's an
Yeah.
alarm clock.
I-
No, but my point is
like,
that
Would
they.
you connect your stuff to anything Game Freak
Yeah.
made?
no, but
All
it's
right,
like,
there we
okay.
go.
My point is though is that Nintendo releases.
I'm surprised they let their systems connect to Game Freak's
Nintendo
games.
releases
I don't.
the most.
I need to say this to the internet. Okay.
Go ahead.
Pokemon is to Nintendo
Oh,
what
heavens.
Quentin is to us.
to this
Right.
podcast. Yeah.
Related, yes, but we're so embarrassed by his
We are not
existence.
responsible for anything that he says, does,
Yeah,
or
but listen,
No.
but
and we do
listen.
not endorse anything that he puts out into the
Correct.
world.
But also, Pokemon's the moneymaker. Pokemon's
No,
the
that-
moneymaker.
I mean,
Everybody
know,
loves
why
it.
do you think
That's
he's still
what I
around?
mean.
Why do you think
Why
he's
do you think
still
this
around? you
podcast
little
is still
troll?
around?
Saying,
Yeah.
Pokemon's the real draw.
Yeah.
But,
Okay, so what's your thoughts on
it's
Alarmo?
really just your
all
hair.
I'm gonna say is that Alarmo and the knowledge
I
that
love
you
that.
bought it.
I love that
The
name.
knowledge that you bought Alarmo and then it's on the way here
Incredible.
is the perfect image. It's the perfect. I mean, it's perfectly in frame and everything
Yeah.
of why Nintendo still exists and has not
Yeah.
burned
correct.
to the ground. Because you are a
Represent.
fool, sir. You are a fool. You will buy whatever garbage that
Here's
they
the thing.
shovel
Here's
into
the-
your
here's the
plate.
thing about
I think I
Nintendo.
will,
They-
yeah, I
if
think I
people
will.
like Devin didn't exist, they just wouldn't make Alarmos
No.
because they know exactly. You don't see like a bunch of Nintendo Labos like in a dumpster because they knew exactly how many people would buy that, and they made exactly that many Labos.
Yeah.
And how many did you buy Labo?
I did.
Yeah, of course
also,
you did.
Also, let
Because
me
you're gonna
just,
buy Alarmo
I,
too.
I
just
played the
Just
VR
fine.
game
VR.
on it and then threw up all over.
Also,
the place.
And
let's
do you know what's really
just-
funny? I bought Labo, and then I bought an OLED, and it doesn't work with Labo.
Of course.
Does it really?
Well,
Oh, that's
well,
incredible.
gentlemen,
Oh, it's too
let's just acknowledge
Yeah.
the fact real quick here, brother. Your
incredible.
wife will smash this alarm clock with a hammer
Hammer.
in 2 weeks.
She was
Because
actually
a
when she
cartoon
saw it, she was
Mario
like,
hammer.
please don't order that.
No, yeah, and you did.
Of course you did.
And
You
I
did.
was like,
No, because-
I won't order any more.
So I watched, mind you, I watched the release video a few days after you all had told me,
Yeah.
hey, there's an alarm clock that Nintendo released, and I said, I hate this company. I hate them so much. They're so stupid. So I watched this video of the release, and as I am watching it, it opens and it's Nintendo's typical annoying commercial, and I started to get a little bit of a headache. By the end of that commercial and the 50th coin sound going off, full migraine. All I could do is imagine
Here-
waking up to
It does have
Mario,
different settings. Yeah,
to Mario, like the voice of Charles Martinet yelling, "Get out the bed! Get up now! Go to your corporate job!" Right? I mean,
You don't have a corporate
no,
job.
but
or-
imagine,
yeah.
imagine all of the people who are going to wake up to this nightmare. Okay, it's going to get old.
I really like the
I have
idea.
the opposite.
One
I
minute
kind of
flat.
have the opposite opinion of Quentin. Because what we don't know is that every company does this. They just don't dress it up as well. Because
Yeah.
when Microsoft releases a $200 Master Chief helmet that lights up when you push a button,
and that's stupid
It's
too.
nobody
obnoxious,
says
yeah.
anything.
I do.
Um,
No, it's
he
stupid.
does.
No, I do.
He-
It's stupid.
to
No,
your
it-
credit,
you
you
are
do.
remarkably
He is the
consistent.
voice in the wilderness.
You are
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm
remarkably
consistent.
crying
Crying
out
out.
amongst
No,
the
no,
trees.
it's stupid.
That is true.
Yeah, it
Fair.
is.
Absolutely
Let's get to
But
this.
clearly they know their market.
But I think
this
we're-
final
Yes, let's-
news point.
Okay,
Final news
so-
point.
yeah.
So the code name for Nintendo's new console
Ooh, code names are always better than the
Oh.
actual names.
That's true.
it has
Well,
put now
maybe not in the case.
I
of
haven't
Switch.
researched
think
this
Switch is
very well.
really good.
Ooh, Switch is
NX.
NX, yeah.
NX
Yeah.
isn't bad. Dolphin's better than Wii. though.
Dolphin is better.
NX
than
makes
Wii.
me think of Star Trek.
Dolphin was
'cause you
GameCube, though.
remember
Revolution.
was
Revolution.
The Revolution and
Yeah.
the Dolphin. I like
Yeah,
it.
so-
NX reminds me of
What
Star
do you-
Trek.
So
I'm
often,
excited.
oftentimes the code name doesn't tell you much. Dolphin didn't tell you anything about the GameCube. But we have it.
Told
and
me that you could get it wet, and it was a lie.
Yeah, yeah.
told me it could swim and it can't.
Told me it could think. and it's terrible that the Japanese eat it. I think isn't that
That
what
was
they
accurate.
do?
Maybe.
Yeah.
That's accurate.
No, and again, this is really recent news as of recording, so it could be wrong, but people are pretty confident that
Most
this
of
is
your
it.
news is.
Yeah, most of it is. Mario Party's not even coming out. No, is ounce.
Yeah,
So you're gonna,
that is a
it's gonna
measurement.
you're gonna be able to weigh your
Coca-Cola.
on it.
Now I don't have to edit.
Coca-Cola.
You
Coca-
put
Am I having a
Coca-Cola.
stroke? Did you
Coca-Cola.
just say it was called ounce?
Ounce.
Yeah.
It's called ounce. Now,
Okay.
some
I
people
mean,
have said that
yeah, it
the
has
code
nothing to
name
do.
is OZ.
OZ.
So some
Oh.
people are questioning whether or
Like
not that's
Oz?
actually ounce.
Could it be
Oz?
Oz?
I've never seen
again,
it written.
The code names
I
have
heard it.
nothing to do with the platform.
Nothing.
Like
Yeah.
like
That makes more
dolphin.
sense as NXOZ.
Yeah.
Makes way more
I
sense.
think OZ
than
makes more sense.
ounce.
I will say that the document that they're gaining, because it was the Pokemon leak. If you guys didn't hear, also news: Pokemon Company was hacked
Good.
Yeah.
and a bunch of information leaked.
Good.
And part of the leak was referring to the new hardware, and the reference word that it used was ounce. It called it ounce. I've not seen it written. It could spell out the word ounce, but a lot of people are saying that it's just OZ, like a measurement. So NXOZ.
What if it's like Oz and Nintendo Wicked Witch of the West?
Oh,
Now,
yeah,
actually,
right.
Ty was joking about the Coca-Cola thing,
Mm.
but it could be something that's in the controller that can detect weight or pressure, like you can squeeze the Joy-Con.
Do you
and,
mean
like,
when
it
he
can
was
detect
talking
pressure
about
sensors?
crack cocaine?
If we ever
Because-
get a Patreon, I'm going to take all
Is that-
the money because
Yeah,
of all the
you're
work
doing
you
all the
put
work.
me
He's
through.
doing all the
I-
work.
Okay,
All that we put.
I was just confused.
No,
I just want to
yeah,
make
so
sure.
that's the code
And
name.
we're back.
We might have the code name.
Okay, and that's
Cool.
the news.
I actually think that the idea of
Okay.
a pressure sensor or something, because it's
Pretty
kind of
cool.
close to the resistive joysticks like PS5 has, and I like it. I'm a big fan.
Bizarrely, Sony did that with the PS2. It has the PS2 has pressure sensitive buttons,
They dropped that feature fast.
but I didn't even know that.
You never
growing
played
up.
Metal Gear Solid 3, where if you push a little too hard, you slit a man's throat.
Isn't that 2 though? PlayStation 2 had pressure sensitive buttons.
Pressure sensitive
Yeah, do you
buttons
know
were
what
on-
console
were on the
that Metal Gear
PlayStation
Solid 3
2, and
came
Metal
out
Gear
on?
Solid 3 was on the PlayStation 2.
Oh right, I don't know anything about Metal Gear Solid.
Upsetting.
Not the right console, but it is.
No,
But
it
you know,
didn't.
Here's a thing that I thought of
Okay.
that is news. It's not necessarily news, but it's a thing that we talk about during this segment only. Did we ever find out what that weird Switch online sign up thing that closed in 24 seconds was?
No, we don't know what it is, but we
I
do
don't
know,
wanna know.
that they're asking the creator, the people involved,
Yeah.
to not comment.
But
or
it's not
post
an
about it yet.
NDA because it's not
It's not an
legally
NDA.
binding. They're
They're
just
just asking. Yeah.
and no one will listen.
I'm just gonna say it probably already leaked on 4chan, and I haven't
It's
seen
a-
yet.
it hasn't-
but,
It has
hasn't
to
been
do.
analyzed
It seems
yet.
to have to do with streaming. Is the
Okay.
one thing that
Yeah.
we gleaned. So some people are thinking that since Switch Online and streaming, it might be GameCube support, and the Switch will be able to play GameCube games via streaming. Since they're we
that-
assume GameCube will come to the next console because it's more powerful, and the Switch can't really emulate GameCube. But there are streaming
Wait,
games
this-
on the Switch.
Wait,
So if you stream GameCube games,
no,
Yeah,
you're,
yeah.
you're
one
not
of the
telling. Wait, the
they're
Switch
thinking.
can't emulate GameCube games.
it cannot.
Are you
No.
telling me that you're
Right now.
if you like, hacked your Switch and put like a Dolphin
it
emulator
doesn't
on there,
run
it
them
can run.
stably. It doesn't.
No.
So in order to qualify
Okay,
for like
gotcha.
most back catalogs, like Sony's, Nintendo's, Microsoft's, you can't just like emulate a game well. It has to be like almost flawless, right? They don't want hiccups in their
Exactly.
games.
That's
they don't
stupid.
want constant.
I think it's
drag.
a RAM issue. The Switch only has
Yeah.
4 gigs,
Yeah.
and like a lot of emulators are RAM heavy.
All right,
This has officially been the longest news section we've ever had.
It's a big
had,
one.
ever had.
It's a big
All
one.
right, well, moving on.
To
From
be
the
fair, we
news.
started this podcast during the biggest drought in gaming.
It was
in
pretty big.
history,
That's true.
Yeah,
So-
it's pretty big.
All right,
All
Play
right,
Mech Warrior
topics.
5 Clans. I need a sequel.
Topic of the week. Go. This is the bumper now.
Please don't put any of that in.
All right, yeah, please don't. That would be terrible.
All right, so who wants to go first?
Not
I'll do it.
Jump
Not
at
I.
once. All right.
I'll do it because I actually have one ready this week. Unlike these Chuds.
That's
All right.
That's nice. Good for you.
So I've got a bit of a long one, but I think it's an interesting one. I'm about to talk about a bunch of games, and I love these games.
Okay.
All right, I want to because it's not going to sound that way. I love these games. In fact, I consider almost all of them, maybe all of them, to be masterpieces. And my question is specifically about great games.
Okay.
All right, but something they do, especially lately, that is driving me insane. And get your guys' thoughts on it. So I've been replaying some really great games because I was telling Ethan on the car ride here, I've gotten into this groove where instead of like playing a game and thinking, oh, that's a good question for the pod, I think of a question and go, I should research this. And so I start playing a bunch of games.
Yeah.
So I've been playing some great games. I had recently played Zelda Tears of the Kingdom again, although I had been playing Echoes of Wisdom more recently. But I went back and I've been playing like Red Dead Redemption 2, Metal Gear Solid 5, and they are great games. However, what is this fascination with wasting your player's time with an insane amount of grind? One of the things I realized replaying these games, right, is just how grindy they are. It takes so long. Metal Gear Solid 5 might be the worst of them.
Of those.
And it really came to
I
a
don't
head.
think RDR2 is too bad.
It's not as it is the best example of the ones that I gave. Honestly, Breath of the Wild was not insanely grindy either. Tears of the Kingdom just kept stacking stuff, and so it got grindier.
Yes.
Metal Gear is definitely the worst.
It's the worst of the ones you mentioned.
And but tons of games. As I got to thinking about it, I was like, man, tons of what I consider to be like S-tier games. This is the glaring blackhead on the face of these otherwise beautiful games.
Is grind.
Not just grind, but like completely unnecessary levels of grind where they don't want you to just occasionally have to like backtrack for supplies or be low on supplies at times. They force you to do like monotonous tasks almost like they're padding it out, which is I'm familiar with from like online games, but they at least have a reason. You're paying by the month, and so they want you to take a long time to get to your goal. With
not a good
games,
reason.
that's not a great reason, but when you buy a game and sit down, it's like they wanted to hit that 100-hour mark, and the only way they could think of it was like, and it's like, give me a good 20-hour
so
game.
We can ground ourselves.
I mean, like,
idea real quick.
Metal Gear Solid 5 is the example, and I'm just giving you a bunch.
Examples of what it is in the game.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So like for like Zelda and both Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, it's like usually it's for upgrades. It's to upgrade your armor and stuff. These didn't hit me as hard because I was like, I quickly realized that like the game is not that difficult, so I don't need to max my armor. But if I was a completionist, I would lose my mind.
Well, and Tears of the Kingdom has functional
upgraded
stuff when you get it into like the auto building and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so
and
like and then in Metal Gear you use resources to upgrade your base.
So you have to do a lot of collection.
But the resources, you don't get them when you collect them. You get unprocessed resources that slowly process as you play the game. So even if you go and grind and collect resources, you don't get them unless you play more, which is to like grind more.
I do have somewhat of a defense of that.
Red Dead is a better example, but the requirements for like getting certain like skill unlocks and stuff are still really high because it's like X number of legendary cougar pelts and stuff, and it's like one would have been fine.
Yeah,
one would have been fine.
Thankfully, that stuff is optional. That's one of those ones where
all of this is optional. To be clear, you could beat
in
Metal
Red Dead,
Gear.
It's the most optional, I think.
In Red Dead,
you could beat Metal Gear with the equipment you get from a level 1 base pretty handily. It's not that hard of a game, honestly.
This is Metal Gear 5.
Metal Gear Solid 5, the Phantom Pain specifically. Like it is crazy, but I want to stress again that these are great games from legendary video game developers like Hideo Kojima, and this seems insane to me that their games have this like that they want to kind of like waste our time in this way. Why? So my question specifically is, not does this happen or does it bother you, because it of course happens, and whether it bothers you, I don't care.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what is your question?
The end.
Let's move on to the next one.
Why
What
do you
is-
think this impulse worms its way into otherwise just like genius level game makers?
I
I have
feel
a
like
theory,
as
actually,
as someone who plays a lot of survival crafters, I feel like the reason that this winds up worming its way into so many games, and especially when they're coming from great developers, is that it's a thin line between rewarding and punishing grind. And when you succeed at it, it's phenomenal. And so they're always like these great developers, Kojima and Aonuma. They're aiming for something really phenomenal. Missing it is so tenuous. It's so easy to miss and wind up being just this sluggish grind that doesn't even feel rewarding at the end. But the difference between that and a fun grind is thin.
Yeah.
It's just very easy. But when you succeed, it's really satisfying.
Yeah.
I think I've talked about it before, but like my favorite like indie game right now is Enshrouded. And Enshrouded has phenomenal grind.
Yeah.
Every time you are like upgrading all of your tools, you go through earlier material faster. When you're mining or like chopping down trees, all the early stuff starts to you just get like tons of it like almost instantly. So whenever you run out of something from like the early game, stone or flint or something, it's like 2 swings of a pickaxe.
It's
You've got
almost free.
thousands.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, it is more punishing. Like you are having to like mine slower, but the fun is that you're in this like dangerous area that's very like oppressive to get the good material, and you're having to escape with it against monsters that can easily kill you at that point.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like it's fun. You're always going into an area, having to mine that's like very tedious and very grindy, but you get just enough pieces to make that piece of weapon or that weapon or the piece of armor that lets you fight the enemies there, which makes grinding easier,
Sure.
which lets you make a pickaxe, which makes the grinding much easier, which lets you get to the next area, which makes that area's grind. And it's so satisfying.
Yeah.
But it's the standout. That's the exception. When you nail it, it's phenomenal. But missing it, like the game Nightingale came out at almost the same time as Enshrouded, and it's so good. Nightingale is so good,
Very well made. In a
but
lot
it
of
just
ways.
missed.
Yeah.
It was like
On the grind.
pick up
stuff.
a bunch of sticks, and I'm
Yeah.
like, there's nothing out here that threatens me. I'm just walking around picking up sticks.
Yeah.
I've done this in so many survival games. Why am I doing this again?
Mhm.
And so, like, to what you were saying, it's that like they're very comparable games in a lot of ways.
Sure.
But I bounced off Nightingale so hard because of the grind, and it's when you actually examine it, there's very little difference. It's
Yeah.
just they're just a little fine tuned. So I think it's that they're aiming for something they just miss.
I think that the games that you mentioned are very expansive games that have very few limitations compared to certain other more traditional games, and ultimately that leads developers to going, well, we got to put certain limitations on the player that lead them in a certain direction so that they have a somewhat crafted experience that they wouldn't have otherwise. So, for example, in MGS5, obviously you have these huge maps with lots of ways that you can approach missions, all this stuff.
Mhm.
But, if you want to go in with a tank and you don't have the GMP to go in with a tank, right? The game is effectively telling you, you have 2 choices here. You can spend your time grinding, right? If you really wanted to, you can spend your time grinding and then doing little missions and waiting for your GMP to fill back up, or you can go in totally naked.
Yeah.
Go in wearing no camouflage. Don't pack a gun.
I was also
right?
specifically
Acquire on
talking
site.
about the material, not the GMP. But
the material.
processing.
Yeah, sure.
GMP is I found very reasonable in MGS.
GMP is not too difficult, but I mean, even that you can run out of, and obviously
that's very
deployment, you would have to strip down basically everything.
Yeah.
But even on special resources,
Yeah.
it's saying you can go in totally naked, and you can, have to be a bit more careful. You're gonna, be easier to spot. You're gonna die quicker. All those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So it's a more crafted experience in that case. It's a little too rough because, again, the line between torturing the player and actually making the experience better is so thin that it's hard to get it right. But the other thing is, beyond setting those limitations, is simply that if Tears of the Kingdom did not have annoying time lengtheners, the game would be half as long, right?
I feel like that's true
if
of
there
all of those except Red Dead.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, that's true. I mean, the big thing is that
And a lot of those time lengtheners, I can't speak to Metal Gear Solid, but they apply only to, they don't apply as much to just the game itself. They apply to like the doing extra stuff.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like
mostly,
you can run straight to the last boss in Tears of the Kingdom. You can absolutely
I even
Yes,
mean
and-
just
every dungeon without needing to upgrade or farm or
Yeah.
anything.
If
But
you-
they're for side activities, and I feel like it's because they want to hit this like metric.
Right. Well, and also the repeat activities is a problem, especially in Tears of the Kingdom, where it's it's just like illuminating the bulbs in the underworld, right? I did every single one, and it was the most monotonous process for me.
It was actually my favorite part of the game.
I found, to be fair, I
Yeah.
found most of that game boring. But my point is that doing this thing where you're doing it over and over and over again becomes very boring to me. But it's also one of those things where they go, you know what? If it illuminated a bigger area and there were fewer of those bulbs, it's going to take people less time to illuminate the entire Underdark, right?
Sure.
So,
Right.
That's
so
not, I wouldn't really consider something like that grind, though, because like for me, and this can obviously be very different, but for me, grinding is like doing the exact same thing. Like a good example is like in something like Nightingale, you're cutting down a tree, right?
Yeah.
And you're not like exploring to like one of the things Enshrouded does really well is to get certain things you have to like explore a new area, and even though you're still mining a rock, you had to go somewhere new to do it, right?
Sure.
In the reason that grind came up for me is that like in like MGS, you often find yourself back at the same base you already infiltrated. The enemies are all back. You're having to infiltrate it again to get the supplies to upgrade your base. So you're doing the exact same thing over again.
Yeah.
In Zelda, for the light routes, I think are different enough that it feels kind of like that it has that exploration mechanic. But the gathering materials, for instance, to like upgrade your armors and stuff, you're going to the same caves and the same dungeons that you found,
or fusion
the best.
materials, which was I thought the most annoying thing was grinding materials to fuse to your weapons. Where I just used duplication glitches because I was
for fusion
so
materials. They
with,
gave you so many, and they're so strong at times that I didn't find myself grinding them. But if you wanted the absolute best in the game, you could absolutely be grinding for those.
It's also one of those things where they really want people to like try a variety of things. And in my opinion, Nintendo can be a little pushy with that, where they're like, you have to have variety, you have to try other things, instead of just being like, you can try other things and you can have variety. In my opinion, I actually think that Minecraft had a bigger impact on the industry than a lot of people think.
Okay.
Because a lot of developers who you wouldn't expect to talk about Minecraft, especially in the setting that they're talking about, do talk about it. So like Mario Odyssey was given its free camera because of Minecraft. Like, players had a hard time orienting themselves in 3D space in Mario 64, which is weird for people to think now, especially if you're a younger viewer. But it was true.
It was
a lot of people
experience.
had trouble understanding the idea of something watching Mario and the camera being a physical object. And then Sunshine gave you even more control of the camera, where it's just a free camera that will move out of the way of objects, but you control the camera. And people really struggled with it because it's not just like you can pivot the camera with a button. Now you're in charge of the camera. So for Galaxy, they just take that away from you, and Galaxy has an extremely complex camera AI. And like there was one developer which Mario 64 also just had one person working on the camera, but that's because it was so new. But it was so complex. Mario Galaxy has a really good camera. You never have a bad view, but you have no control. And then every 3D Mario game after that locked the camera because they were like, Mario's supposed to be for, anyone to play. So if a kid can't wrap his head around it, we're not going to put it in. But literally, in a developer interview, they talked about how they considered giving Odyssey a Galaxy-style camera, but Minecraft made them realize that young players nowadays are fine controlling twin sticks and the camera in Minecraft is literally can't do anything without being able to move both at the same time. And it was weird to see them talking about Minecraft in a 3D Mario game's development, but it is like one of the best-selling games, and it's one of the few games that blew up in Japan that wasn't from Japan. Japan's usually very insulated.
Very
So,
Yeah. I mean,
so how does this relate to the open world?
I think that what Minecraft did to the industry a lot is I think a lot of games stopped saying, like, there was this design philosophy, and I could go into this a lot, but I'll just skim the surface. There's a design philosophy you saw a lot in the 7th gen with the Wii and, you know, to some extent the 360 and the PS3, where they really wanted to trim the fat. They wanted games to just be streamlined, nothing, like no bloat, nothing. But then when Minecraft came along, there's so much to do in Minecraft. It's like endless amounts of things to do in Minecraft, which is kind of the point. So I think developers adopted a strategy of like keeping that streamlined when it comes to the game itself. So if you just want to turn it on, play the story, beat it, leave it that way. But then I think they just sort of started to go like when people, you know, because younger developers are working on these games, to just sort of give a green light as people suggested additional content to the point where they're like, hey, what if there was 1,000 Korok seeds -1? And they're just like, sure, just hide them, put them wherever. And then people are like, what if there was 1,000 moons in Mario Odyssey -1? Yep, sure. Just like put some of them under a rock. Some of them you have to like climb a whole mountain and it's a big deal to get to. And then some of them you literally just like kick a rock.
So you're saying the design philosophy of just more is better is
when it
just a
came
common
to
idea?
additional content, I think that when developers saw that younger players especially respond to the idea of like go over in the corner and there's just a random cave and I go in and I find diamonds and there's like a billion things to do. I think they were like, we need to, you know, put this, or we can put this and we won't get absolutely trounced. And so what I notice is that the completionists are all, and I could be wrong about this, I'm not like the internet master, but as far as I can tell, completionists are all like in their 30s and 40s, and a lot of younger players have a little bit more of like a, I don't want to say disposable and like clown on them, because that's not what I mean, but they have more of a like, let's consume this and move on. They don't really have that idea of like, I want 100% the game. And there was a YouTuber who I'm going to avoid saying the name of, but he liked completing games back in the day. And a lot of modern games really...
Might have been a completionist.
Wait.
Maybe, but I don't know if that's who it was.
I heard that all people who are completionists for games commit horrible acts of fraud, usually charity fraud.
Well,
at least are alleged to.
That's because
speaking,
they're always trying to cut corners to complete games.
Right.
It's like speedrunners are always cheaters.
Oh.
I mean, I heard it's about, as far as all completionists in the world goes, it's about 0.1% of them do that.
It's like a really
But,
small percent
you know,
of the ones that commit
could just be one that does that.
Massive charity fraud, allegedly.
Right. Thanks for I tried to dodge.
Okay,
You were using a feather, he was using a chicken.
So I blame Minecraft.
Okay.
So,
Minecraft.
All right.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Yeah.
Minecraft.
That's a good answer.
Minecraft.
All right.
It's
All right.
Minecraft's fault.
Anybody want to go ahead?
Who wants to go next?
I mean, I can go next.
You go next.
If you would like me to go next.
Go.
So, Hideo Kojima was alleged to have commit an act of violence against Shinzo Abe, Prime Minister of Japan, which resulted in his life no longer going on and him being sent to hell, right? And so was that better?
Yeah, you were doing
Okay.
real good,
Much
and then
better.
you stumbled there. At the
Okay,
end,
I'm just
so-
trying to establish who.
Okay, yeah. He was
this
accused of
is.
something that
So-
he probably didn't do.
Well, he might not have, but that's your right. That's your opinion. The point
Right.
is that so Hideo Kojima did that, but that's not really important to the question that I'm asking. The question is, so we know Hideo Kojima, he creates games woke that are DEI, right? Those are terms I've
That's
heard.
why all his
right?
characters are either white or Japanese.
No.
Man, yeah.
Hideo Kojima, he puts in the forefront of his game. He puts women. He puts homosexuals. He puts
Right.
blacks. He
Right.
puts disabled people.
Okay.
He puts
my favorite.
it's
It's
he-
definitely fake. My favorite fake tweet about that was to everyone who keeps telling me there aren't enough gay characters in Metal Gear Solid. Of course there are. There's you, the player.
There's you, the player.
That's a
But
fantastic fake
he
Kojima.
puts
Incredible.
the
10 out of
he puts the
10.
disenfranchised in
And
the
mostly
forefront
true.
of his games.
You know?
And he does this while also criticizing this great country, the United States of
Right.
America.
Yep.
And so with all those kinds of things in front of you, do you think that retroactively, before we ever started talking about woke, before DEI, I don't know what that means, but before that
No one does.
existed,
It's when you
It
drink too
means
much and you
do
try
it-
to drive your
It
car.
means do it yourself.
is that what that means?
Yeah.
Oh wow. But even though he did all that before that was a talking point,
Right.
do you think retroactively Hideo Kojima will say sort of ibterdupted our I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Hold on, let me just let's roll it back. Just
Rewind.
that word.
rewind so I can get through
Rewind.
the sentence.
Quentin had a stroke.
I need to get through it seriously. Hold on.
Okay. We're all serious.
We're all very serious people.
Okay.
Oh.
Sorry.
Continue.
So do you think that Hideo Kojima was kind of the one that sort of
You'll never make it.
I'll get through it. Just 1 second, gentlemen.
I've never heard that word
Do you,
before.
do you
but
think
it's
that
incredible.
Hideo Kojima is the one that sort of? Do you think Hideo Kojima is sort of the one that ibterdupted the gaming industry?
Keep going. Just keep going. Power through.
He really wants this to be a serious,
I'm sorry.
serious topic.
I'm gonna get through it. Just a second. Do you think Hideo Kojima is the one that sort of ibterdupted the gaming? Alright.
You're
I'm gonna do it.
We've got our episode title,
I'm
guys.
sorry.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it. Just 1 second.
What the F does ibterdupted
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I got it.
All right, go.
Do you think Hideo Kojima's the Ghost Train? Right as I was about
The
to finish.
microphones cannot
Okay,
pick
good.
it up.
Do you think Hideo Kojima is kind of the one that ibterdupted the gaming industry into being the woke DEI kind of thing that it is now, where it's like video games have women in them, they have, we'll say the blacks, they have the gays, they have the,
Sure.
the people who are disabled, right? Like they can't walk, people who are, disenfranchised,
Right.
like little like child soldiers,
Yeah.
Oh, child soldiers, they want to fight the CIA. The CIA are heroes. Do you think that Hideo Kojima is responsible for the ibterdupting of the gaming industry?
We're gonna play a classic game here on the podcast. Let's see who can interpret Quentin's question
I can.
into
It's
a logical.
It's always me.
yeah.
Sort of. Yes, he did.
Okay.
So like, sort of yes and sort of no. So it's an art forms are conversations,
Mhm.
and they're conversations with parts of community, and it's very interesting when you look at the kinds of communities in Japan that create art because they are often counterculture. And
I feel like that's everywhere. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And in Japan, there is a very conflicted culture between trying to hold on to traditions
Sure.
Mhm.
that got removed from them through war and
okay.
trying to move forward as a part
Uh-huh.
of a global society and not just like an island no one's allowed to go to, right?
Yeah.
They want to be part of a global community. They're also struggling with identity. And you can see this kind of like worming, like snaking, slippering through
Solid
these
snake.
ideas and like, how do you pin down these two things? And it's very difficult for people in that community because you don't want to like shut your doors and tell everyone to get out. It's only people that look exactly like you. But you also don't want to like lose yourself in the crowd, like
Sure.
and lose all these connections when they kind of get swept away. So what we see is that there's a lot of voices in Japan inside the art communities that are trying to be more inclusive and are trying to like, what can, instead of like dropping their identity, what can we bring and be a part of? And I think the reason Kojima, I would say that he's not the one who started it, but he's kind of the one that started it,
Okay.
is because characters like Snake have like a connection to Japan and to
Sure.
Japanese people, but
Okay.
there's also a lot of multinationalism. You know, there's a lot people from a lot of different backgrounds in games like Metal Gear. And a lot of other games at the time in that art form coming out of Japan were either very traditionalist, you know, here's a bunch of samurais, here's our robots we think are neat, here's this Japanese, you know, character who saves Japan from aliens, and I don't know what was happening to the rest of the world.
Sure.
Or they are like, drop it, all of it. We're doing medieval knights and laser guns, right?
Yeah, right.
And Kojima comes along and he's like, what do we have to add? What can we add and be a part of instead of like one or the other? What can we add and be a part of? And that's a much better way of pulling someone into like a bigger group. Is you don't have to get lost, you don't have to lose your identity, and you don't have to like give up your like identity, your like your heritage, your ancestry. None of that has to go away. You're just you're just friends with more people, you know, you're just you just know more, you're a part of something a little bigger. And Kojima kind of nailed that at a time when it was kind of going back and forth. And he did the same thing again with Death Stranding, right as like something in Japan happened that caused them to become a little more traditionalist and retreat a little more into cultural identity, some kind of national trauma.
I had no idea.
Kojima comes along in a relative period of time, often right before these things, because he's a prophet.
Yeah.
And he half predicts, and then he half like balms, like he tries to like ease a little bit of like bad, like Metal Gear Solid 2, bad things are going to happen, and people are not always have your best, people in power don't have your best interest in heart, but you know your neighbors do. That's kind of Metal Gear Solid 2's like whole ending is like, yeah, that guy next to you, he probably wants the best for you, for himself.
I mean, that's an interesting
Death
point
Stranding
you made,
comes
though.
on to
You know, I don't really know why MGS3 features a woman beating up and emasculating our main male character throughout the whole thing until you shoot her in the face. Spoilers. You know, so
that is the whole point.
I don't
this
really.
Is what does an incel want to do to the women who beat him down more than shoot
Let me get
them
this. Let me get this straight. He wants to be beaten by them and then let win.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. They've got that.
You know,
I will say my answer is no. First off,
Kojima is not.
None of us know what ibterdupted mean, and Quinn is laying a trap. All right.
Exactly.
No,
we already knew
step
it was
one.
a trap.
No, it's not a trap.
But
we already knew it was.
I'm a spring trap. So I don't think it is Kojima because Sakaguchi and Kitase were putting black people and girls and gays in their games long before Kojima.
Who are those people? Sure. I don't know who those people are.
No, I do actually think if you go back through the list of like Final Fantasy games compared to a lot of games that are around, they have a lot more like female character representation.
Yeah.
They have characters from different ethnicities.
Kefka
and stuff
does not
coming
count
up.
as LGBTQ representation, Ty. Kefka does not
but Terra
count.
does.
Okay.
Terra 100.
Terra
Okay.
does. Terra does.
Yeah.
Yeah,
just saying.
Yeah. She's got it. Listen, she shows up in a Subaru.
Listen,
Come on, guys.
Kefka doesn't represent all
drives
if
a
if you're a woman in
Subaru,
I'm sorry, I just need to get this point out. Kefka doesn't represent all LGBTQ people, but he does represent me.
I mean, he does represent you.
Sure.
Yeah,
Most of them.
absolutely.
Okay. He's an evil clown.
If Aerith or Tifa didn't make you gay, what's wrong with you?
Well, if you're a woman,
If you're a woman,
you have to specify that. I was about to say.
Thank you for specifying. I
if
was
you're
like,
a woman,
I mean,
why didn't you assume?
But you're saying so before Kojima was even on the scene,
He's a player. He's an absolutely a contributor. But like, I don't think you can say that
He's
one
not the
person
reason.
ibterduped.
they didn't ibterdupted the gaming industry into being woke and DEI.
No.
Exactly. It was there from the very beginning.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna go on a similar line to Ty's, but like I don't think so. I don't think he ibterdupted anything.
Mario is Italian.
I don't think anyone's ever ibterdupted.
Not even the gaming industry.
I think that you've ibterdupted once.
I ibterdupted this podcast?
No, I don't know what ibterdupted means, but the reason I don't think so is
We're gonna
because
find out it's gonna be devastating.
if that's the case, I think
Oh, yeah.
I don't deny that his games have done a good job with representation, but I think that like everybody ignored him though. I do think. I don't think
Okay,
he's been for as popular as he is. I think he gets overlooked a lot, and I think a lot of people write him off as like a weirdo.
Okay.
He's definitely stayed on the. He's had really
Karma.
He's had really like successful games,
Mm-hmm.
but he's always been thought of as like an R-Tour.
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
think R-Tours
okay.
historically have made...
Auteur,
There
right?
is no R in auteur.
No, he means auteur, but we all knew what he meant. Keep
no,
talking.
no, he's not an auteur.
He's
an
an auteur.
R-Tour.
He is an
It's like being an
auteur.
auteur, but you're autistic.
He is an auteur who
Yeah.
duped the gaming industry. Okay.
It's like being an auteur, but you're artistic.
yes.
Yeah. No, so
Okay.
I do think that he's
Yeah.
seen as like one of those more, he's making the caviar of games in the sense
Sure.
that it's not everybody's cup of tea. And so it's hard to be like, I think that in that way, because especially if you're talking about counterculture like Ethan was,
Mm.
the irony of counterculture is that counterculture will eventually become culture.
Okay.
Eventually,
Yeah.
the mainstream media is going to start advertising to people in jeans with holes in them and with mohawks.
Sure. Right.
And
I mean,
Nirvana,
what we,
the guys
what
who
we forget though is that like 80% or more of counterculture like dies off. But then when we look retroactively, we see the stuff that survived and just became culture.
Yeah,
so
it doesn't-
like,
okay,
it isn't
okay.
kind
Die
of
off.
incredible that Kojima picked things that survived.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
The thing is, counterculture will always counterculture has to remain in counter to culture. Culture can change and be different,
Okay.
but
right.
counterculture has to go against the grain, which is why you see people that as soon as we're more accepting of homosexuals or people of different races, there's going to be people who are like, we shouldn't be, because they're trying to be counter to the current culture.
Ooh, sure. Okay.
So like, I think
Yeah.
the main thing is that I don't see a lot of people who are making games that focus on minorities reference their love of Metal Gear Solid. I think they reference like their love of games
DEI
that-
woke
See, that's
nonsense.
yeah, but I feel like you're
Yeah.
avoiding the real question. Did he lead to the gaming industry being filled with
no,
woke
I
DEI
think what's
content?
sad is
I
think
that
that
we
what-
all have come to hate.
I think I'm going to jump over the little string you're laying for your trap, and I'm going to say that it's a shame because I think he's done a good job. He did a good job in like the 90s of being inclusive when a
Mhm.
lot of people weren't. And I think
Absolutely.
he got mega
Mhm.
ignored, and then other people came along, and I don't think they noticed him. So I don't think he kicked it off because I don't think anyone noticed him.
Okay.
I
All
think
right.
he was the guy who was protesting that guac was extra at Chipotle,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that once Chipotle actually got pressure to give guac away for free, we look back and go, "Oh, cool, that guy was doing it back then," but nobody noticed him.
Chipotle
Yeah.
has free guac.
I would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guy's gone.
Well, I mean, I obviously don't agree with any of you on this subject. I mean, the fact of the matter is that
Doesn't matter.
what Hideo Kojima did was he said things like, we shouldn't have all these nukes pointed at each other. We shouldn't have
Right.
these child soldiers being, forced to fight the CIA. We shouldn't have,
'Cause that
unilateral decision making from a single figurehead in each nation that can decide whether we live or die, right? And
The
he-
thing I will say
he-
he did is he said a lot of those kinds
Um,
of stories we were talking about in the modern era, and not a lot of people were doing that. They were using metaphor.
As I was
more
saying,
extensively.
Oh, sure.
and so he took all of those messages that people were listening to, and then he slipped in there. He said, women should guess what? Women can be in special forces. He said, homosexuals, they actually exist. He said African Americans, black people can be engineers and scientists.
Yeah.
He said that little twinkish kind of scientist men can be fans of anime and also potentially lead to nuclear weapons being developed. They're dangerous and we have to stop them, right? He threw in
Oh, that's
DEI messages. And would I say, slipping in something, in secret,
Mhm.
that's really what, the ibterdupted effect is in the gaming industry. It's similar. I'm sorry. It's similar to when my doctor ibterdupted.
You can't get through ibterdupted. We can all say it just
That's
fine.
I'm
incredible.
sorry. No, it's because of the sentences in my head, and then I'm having trouble. It's
No
just
one
It's
knows.
just like.
I think
Excuse me.
he's like merging interrupted and introduction.
Excuse me. I was talking. Pardon me, sir.
Or duped.
Like
like
it's
you got
similar to
duped.
when my doctor ibterdupted my prostate during a regular exam,
Right.
and while it did return function, it was it was very surprising because
Oh.
the problem was he was checking my tonsils, It was like a horrible slip in, and it was a trick.
Right.
And, I didn't ask to have my functions restored. I did not want that. And Hideo Kojima, yes, we do want to fight the CIA, but we also don't want to have to listen to female voice actors.
As always, we leave
I
Quentin's
told him.
topic more
I told him.
confused, and you guys haven't seen half of it because I had to edit out most
Yeah,
of
a
it.
lot.
Okay, next question. Let's get these
Ethan, do you want to go?
helicopter
or do you
blades
want to close
rolling.
this out?
can go.
So in the spirit of Mario Party, we're gonna play Mario Party. No, I'm just
that's
kidding.
exciting.
No, in the spirit of Mario Party, I got to thinking about mini games,
Okay.
the game within a game,
Mm-hmm.
tiny game, and big game. Mario Party is obviously like a game where the crux of it is mini games, which keeps that's the whole point. Is it's moving, it's quick, it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been thinking about and I get so excited right before a new Mario Party to play the new mini games because I love the craft of like what makes a good mini game. So that got me thinking. A lot of modern games are getting kind of trolled or dunked on for their mini games. A lot of people are like, just give me the steak. I don't want any potatoes. I don't want any green beans. I want the steak. Stop putting in mini games. So
Sounds like a very unbalanced meal.
no, but I mean,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
No water.
Where's
Yeah.
Kyle?
Water,
Kyle
yeah.
should
When we
be
talk
here
about
for
the
this.
carnivore diet.
Kyle should be there.
That's a good point.
No, so my question is, is kind of twofold. Do you like mini games to be in a game? You can leave out games where this, like Mario Party, where like
non-party games.
yeah. Do you like mini games to be in it? And whether yes or no, what in your opinion makes a good mini game?
Okay. Can I go first?
Go, Quentin.
This is pretty concise. I'll say that it's a yes and a no. And the one is that it's a yes if the game is a game that I don't like, and it's a no if it's a game that I do like. And the reason is that the only part of Final Fantasy VIII that is worth playing is Triple Triad. There is no other reason to play Final Fantasy VIII.
This will be the first podcast
Okay.
that Tyler watches, and he's just gonna log
Ethan,
off.
you like Final
He's
Fantasy
gonna
VIII,
log off
correct?
right here.
Triple Triad's better than the rest of the game.
It is.
Okay,
I mean, it's better than the rest of the game, but I
It's better
like
than-
both.
It's better than the rest of the game. So in that case, I'm like, yeah, sure. Triple Triad's a mini game, but it's also better than the rest of the game. So if I'm gonna play Final Fantasy VIII, that's a positive that it has Triple Triad in it.
What makes a good mini game then,
in
in your opinion?
a good mini game, I would say, is something which is not dependent on the game that you are currently playing, right?
Okay.
Because if I take Triple Triad out of Final Fantasy VIII, it is actually better than it existing in Final Fantasy VIII. Okay. However, if I play, I don't know. I guess the limitations of how we're describing a mini game, because a quick time event you could say is a mini game.
You could
and
say
those
that.
are horrible.
They are.
Okay.
Yep.
A good mini game is something that would be good if it was divorced completely from the game you're actually playing.
Interesting.
I think that's generally how it goes. If I'm playing a game where the main gameplay is incredibly engaging, I generally don't feel that it needs to be broken up with a mini game. To put a little caveat, if it's mandatory. If it's mandatory, I absolutely hate it, regardless of what it is. I
Yeah.
will hate it by virtue of it being mandatory.
So it needs to be good if it like as its own thing, and don't make it mandatory.
It needs to be good as its own thing, and it needs to be optional.
Okay.
Those are my two.
A fun
I
distraction.
can't believe that I agree with Quinn almost entirely on this one.
First time
You
You know
Ever.
what?
First time
Sometimes the
ever.
planets align.
Man.
I think mini games, I will put the caveat that I think it's okay for mini games to be mandatory if they're short and very fun. And you just you get through them, and it can be a nice moment where a developer says, we want to break up the pace a little bit with like a little mini game, and just let's move on. Don't spend too much time on it. I like there's a game I played recently where you run into a mini game, and the mini game takes about 4 minutes, and if you fail it, you just move right on.
Yeah.
You can go back and replay it later for a score or something if you want. But if you fail it, there's not really a penalty. It's literally
Yeah.
just
Mhm.
there to like pump the brakes a little bit on this adventure, and then you move on. And I
Yeah.
think that's also fine. I do say that like I don't think my love of minigames has anything to do with whether I am enjoying the content of the main game or not, as long as they are optional, because every game that I've ever played, at some point, I'm like, oh, I'm going to take a break from this. And in some cases, that means putting the game down and going and doing something else, which is fine. However, in some cases, it's like, oh, wait, I can go play Triple Triad now, or I can go and play Queen's Blood, or any of these, this incredible mini game, and stay in this world a little longer, but break up my my gameplay. But the core thing that makes a mini game good is I should be willing or even wanting to play this on my phone while I'm not playing this game, right? This should be
agree.
something I play, have fun with at any other time, and then you just sandwiched it into this game because it felt like a good fit.
Yeah, my perfect example of that is Pazak in KOTOR. Because let me just
Great
tell you this right
example.
now, I have Pazak on my phone and I do play it. You know, there was a app developed that had online functionality. It doesn't anymore, which is crazy. I think they're getting it back now.
Yeah.
But I used to play it online, and I went through all their little tournaments in game. It was a great app, and I played it like literally 2 weeks ago. Pazak is a lot of fun, and it's something where even though I've played KOTOR a million times, I still go back and I want to do all the Pazak. I go to every planet where there's Pazak players, and I'm like, as a personal thing, I want to beat the Pazak players because it's fun. The game itself is fun. It's optional.
Yeah.
You don't have to play Pazak in that game if you don't want to play Pazak.
Yeah.
But I'd say that's a perfect example.
Ethan, what about you? Do you like mini games? And if
I do like mini games. I think
what makes a good one?
so. A mini game is good. The things that make a mini game good change whether or not it's mandatory.
Yeah.
If it is not, like, mini games that aren't mandatory should be exactly what you guys said. They should be good games on their own.
Yeah.
But mini games that are mandatory, I actually don't think are bad. The thing I think is they need to serve an intentional function, and I've almost never seen them do it. So, like, if you have a game where you're playing, it's a story heavy game and you're playing as like a soldier, right? And you're caught up in like this adventure, and then you want to throw a mini game into that, make the mini game intentional to tell you something about this character by putting them out of their element. You are bad at every mini game you play, but you're a soldier that can take on like dozens of dragons or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Then if he's bad at like making tea, right? Like you have a mini game to make tea, and it's a fairly simple little mini game, and you're kind of bad at it when you try it. It's telling you something. It's taking you out of the element so that you can experience something. And then it's a mini game that's not really about clearing the mini game. It's about saying something. It's there to make you have a feeling of like, oh, I'm this guy who should be good at everything, and yet I can't even like make tea because I don't know anything other than fighting. That's telling you something. Knights of the Old Republic is a really good example of both the good and the bad.
Yeah.
Pazak is great. I love Pazak. Better than the main game.
Pazak is great.
But
Let's talk
about speed or swoop races.
Ooh, the swoop racing is bad.
What a garbage mini game.
Yeah,
And they get rid of that
was
for the
terrible.
second game.
For two reasons.
The second game,
the
you don't have to
first
do
one
it.
is it's mandatory.
And it doesn't work.
And the second is it's not fun.
No.
And it tells you
I've almost always
nothing.
played the game modded with swoop races that were fun.
But here's
not that
the
hard to
thing.
do.
I played
but
with
it
this
doesn't
fun
tell
little
you-
mod called Skip the Swoop
It
Races
doesn't-
entirely.
It's bad
Right.
because it doesn't tell you anything about the character.
No.
The character you're playing as, fun fact, isn't a swoop pilot. So there's no
No.
reason he should be so good at swoop
No.
racing, but there's also no reason to like say anything about
I will
swoop
say
racing.
it is supposed to be set up of a you know what, this is a 20-plus-year-old game. I can spoil this. It's supposed to be a setup of the fact that you have Jedi reflexes and can swoop real fast.
There
which
was no other way to do that.
There was no other way to do that other
Yeah.
than a
We'll
horrible
put a sign
minigame.
up here that says Quinn spoils the ending of Joker 2.
Spoil-
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yes, but
So there you
that's stupid. stupid.
Yeah.
Yes,
it's
it was poorly done.
Do you know why it's also stupid to say you have superhuman reflexes? Because you failed 47
Yeah,
times.
you clearly didn't.
Yeah,
and you
clearly
needed
don't.
You know the
needed
guy
them
who
to
at
beat
the
it.
beginning of the swoop race gets the wrench thrown into his machine and dies in
Yeah.
a fire?
Oh,
in the
That's
Phantom
you.
Menace.
Right.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
you.
Can I ask you
Yes.
about one mini game in particular that's
Yeah, go for it.
semi-mandatory
I know which one
in
you're gonna
a
ask.
recent game? You technically can skip it, but
Mhm.
it's in the story that you run into it. Is the marching mini game
Loved it.
in Junon
Yeah.
in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth?
Yeah.
What made that a good mini game? I think that's because I agree that it's a good mini
It's
game.
just a rhythm game.
So
it's not, yeah.
I actually don't really like that mini game in the original 7.
yeah, it's just kind of
Because like it's this weird text mini game, and I
Yeah.
don't like any of those the weird text.
There
ones
is
in
not
the
a
original
single
7.
good mini game in Final Fantasy VII. To be clear, okay, Final Fantasy VII
I
mini
can't
games
comment
are
on that
not
'cause
very
I
good. but
didn't play all the mini
anyways.
games in it.
Okay,
but
Yeah. I liked Chocobo Racing, but
yeah, it was.
It's
Here's
okay.
the thing about the
Okay.
Junon Parade is that it is telling you a bunch about the characters.
Sure.
And it is taking you out of your element. There's this weird thing where it's like you're in disguise and you're trying to like do this. Spoilers, because it's always going to be spoilers.
Yeah.
But that is actually a fantastic mini game because at first I thought it's trying to tell you something about Cloud, Tifa, and Aerith. Like they're getting into this thing, and like some of Cloud's like soldier training starts to come back to him.
Yeah.
But the thing it's actually doing is like all of these like soldiers, you have to go and recruit them out of the city to build the best
Yeah.
team, and that's kind of the mini game. You're trying to like figure out which soldiers make for a really good parade, and then you try to perform it. And the reason that it's so good is that afterwards, obviously, crap hits the fan and you have to like flee and you have to do some fighting.
Yeah.
And right as you get to the end, there's a moment where with the soldiers where they start talking to Cloud and they tell him like, "Oh yeah, the Avalanche agents who infiltrated are somewhere around
it's a
here."
great scene.
And he
yeah.
thinks that they've like outed him, and he's like, "Oh, don't." They're like, "Don't worry, Captain, we'll go find them." And he realizes they know he's Avalanche, but they've formed this like bond with him, and so they cover for him on the way out. And I thought, I never even saw their faces, and yet I feel strangely emotionally attached to these guys.
Yeah.
And that like this one moment endeared me that like if they died, I'd have a crisis, right? Like it was really good. And the way they
Crisis
did that,
core.
the way they did that was by using the mini game as a storytelling element.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have worked if we were just fighting. That would have been the thing we've done the whole game. You have to take me out of it for a moment,
Sure.
make me invest in this weird little thing that's just dumb fun. Winning, losing doesn't really matter in it. Like, it's fine. You don't have to try it all. Like, you basically start with the winning deck. Like, you can just do this easy parade and it just basically wins itself. But you do have this more fun, more complicated one, and it tells you something. It's
Yeah.
intentional. Fantastic.
So Devin, what?
I think in a rare setting, usually it's this side of the table unifying and that side of the table, but you two have unified, and I think we're unified. I love mini games in the game in my games, but I think that a good mini game is the same as like a good song in a musical. Bad musicals just like tell the story and then break, sing to get a song in, and then go back. Good musicals use music to progress the story forward. And I think mini games, when they're at their best, do exactly what Ethan's saying. They're different from the main gameplay, so that it is a mini game. Driving a tank in Battlefront is not a mini game. It's close, but you're still pointing and aiming just like you do on the ground. It's just a little bit different.
You're just changing the way
A
you
mini
interact
game
with the core
changes
content.
how you interact with the game, but it's the best when it serves a direct purpose that's really rewarding to go back to. I love a great example is I love fishing mini games in games. Like a really good fishing mini game, Stardew Valley has a really good fishing mini game, and Quentin definitely agrees with me. No, but I even like Animal Crossings, where just like you're just basically waiting for the shadow to, because you gain something from it, right? To the point where I'm almost kind of disappointed when I'm playing a game and the fishing mini game is literally just throw your lure into the water, it'll bob a few times, and then you can pull. Like I
We
feel
get it.
like
You didn't have fun with Core Keepers fishing.
I
minigame.
hate it. No, it's fine, but yeah,
No,
I think.
mean, Core Keeper is a lot of fun, but the fishing minigame is
Yeah.
not fine. It's nothing.
well, and the legacy one is just kind of confusing.
Okay, but
so.
we get that you like mini games, but
Yeah.
what makes a good mini game?
So what makes a good mini game is to Ethan's point, is when it contrasts from the regular gameplay, but it serves a purpose that moves. I think that if it serves a purpose in the game, it's good. And if it serves like a purpose that moves the game forward, it's fantastic. Yeah. And I'll blow your minds here, because in my mind, one of the best examples that some people will claim I'm stretching it, but I've thought about this a lot and I don't think I am. One of the best examples of mini games in a game is actually Mario Odyssey. In a lot of ways, most, if not all, of the captures are mini games, because you're not just moving around as Mario anymore. Like, many of them have to tell you the controls on the bottom because they're nothing like Mario. You become like a slinky wiggler that, like, you have to extend your body across gaps, and then once your feet touch the other side, the rest of you can come with you. Or you turn into a Sherm tank, and like now you've got a cannon that you're aiming. So it takes the gameplay of just Mario running around and jumping, and some of the captures you can't jump. So it is sort of that line of like, well, some people would say it's like getting in a tank in Battlefront, but the reason I argue it's not is because you're still just sort of like, vehicles are just that. They're just vehicles. And the captures in Mario Odyssey are very similar to vehicles, but many of them are mini games. Like, one of them that's just objectively a mini game is the RC car.
Oh yeah.
Where like you drive the RC car around. But it's one of those things where it's such a good example of how you can take the player out of the gameplay for a little bit, but then it's still that just sort of like, and most of the time a good mini game is a very simple concept. I don't think that you can be complex, like Triple Triad is definitely a game within a game. And the only thing, like, I think we all very closely agree, the only difference is I don't necessarily think a mini game needs to be fun outside of the game, because like Mario Party's mini games are not enough to be like on their own. Like, if you were just playing,
No, but that is a party game.
I mean, like, kind of on a if it was a mobile game on your phone that you and your friends just connect and play around, those would be fun. Yeah. So they still could be fun outside of it.
It's not. It wouldn't be as in depth as Triple Triad.
Yeah,
but
they're very simple.
So to sum up my point, I love mini games, and I think that they're at their best when they're simple, and when the mini game itself is rewarding, both because it was fun to play and it affected the game in some kind of like meaningful way.
So I got thinking about something the other day, because I'm a very existential, very nostalgic person in a lot of ways. What's a game that you played that you felt like you had a like very deep or interesting experience with, but you kind of know you're never going to play again?
Oh, I know I'm never going to play it again. Ooh.
Would you like me to go first?
Yeah, go for it.
So back in 2013, toward the end of 2013, I just bought a bunch of indie games on my 3DS that I just wanted for a long time. Some absolute classics on there. I got Crimson Shroud. Yeah, phenomenal RPG, so good. But one of the games that I got was just, I believe it's called Night Sky. This is the reason I know I'm never going to play it again. But the whole thing, you're just like a glass orb that just rolls around, and you have there's almost no buttons to the game. It's just roll left, roll right. It's all a little momentum game of trying to get through, and it just opens with this silhouette character walking through a field, lays down on like a blanket, looks up, and it says like, you close your eyes and you had the strangest dream that you were an orb falling through the sky. And that's it. That's the whole story to it. And it's just this beautiful music, and like it's really serene. I had this like very interesting experience playing it that like stuck with me like a lot. Like, I would wake up in like the middle of the night sometimes and like play through it. And the second I beat it and got all 3 stars on like every stage, I put it down and I never touched it again. I started it up once just to hear, like, to see it. But it was like an oddly powerful experience to play this weird little game about just a dream and falling through these, going through. And other games that I have powerful experience with, I know I'll go back and play.
but not that one.
but not that one.
Okay.
And it's not because it's bad. Like someone recommend, I'd say, yeah, you should play it. It's
You
fantastic.
just don't.
But
I feel like you got.
I got
you
everything
needed.
I can get out of it.
Yeah.
And so I know I won't go back to it.
Okay.
No, I automatically know exactly as you were
Me too.
talking about it. I don't know if you guys have played it. It's called Abzu. It was
Yeah.
a PlayStation
Yeah.
exclusive
I've got
for a little
that
bit.
on
Mhm.
my wish list.
You guys know I'm a big. I love I'm a big ocean guy. I love oceanography and all that stuff. It was very moving. Like it's a game with no words or anything. It's just all symbolic and stuff. You're basically you're like tracking the movement of a great white shark, but it has a very like kind of spiritual message about the ocean, like
Your connection to it.
it's not our ocean, but it's populated with the fish of our ocean, and like especially the scenes with the whales, and like they really nail that sort of like ethereal feeling of like being in the presence of a whale, like the strange. I've always found like whale calls to be soothing but also unnerving, otherworldly.
Haunting.
Yeah, otherworldly, but also feels like it's the most earthly thing ever, like more than we are because of just the history of whales. Beautiful game, moving. I cried at the end. I didn't sob, but I was teary at the end. It was just beautiful. But
Never going back.
no, because it's such a like it's such a complete experience. I wouldn't get anything from playing it again. Like I wouldn't have that same moment of seeing it again. So as much as I love Abzu, and I actually think it has the best underwater controls of anything, and if I ever make a game, I'm gonna just steal that. But yeah, so that's me, Abzu. You should play it once and then never touch it again.
Play Night Sky, play Abzu.
Yeah, play Night Sky, play Abzu.
I'm gonna say every Animal Crossing game that's ever been released, but
Oh, good
specifically the handhelds, New Leaf and
Wild World.
Wild World were both. I think I just playing those games in those moments was so significant. Like those just sort of really helped form my love for games like that.
When you
Yeah.
go
Relaxing
back, like
games.
if you start them
But-
back up, you're a tourist.
But that's
You're
that's
not-
my-
you're not- you
That's
don't
the whole
live
thing.
there.
Ooh.
That's the whole thing. When
Yeah.
I started back up, because they are dependent on the moment that they were released and the time that I played them.
We got Wild World on the same day when we got
Yeah.
our DS Lights.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And
There's a bundle,
I can't go back. I can't go back,
No.
and I don't expect that I will ever play those games again. If they release a new Animal Crossing, I would be overjoyed to play it. But I'm not going to go back because Animal Crossing is an experience that, again, is dependent for me. It's dependent entirely on where I was in life when I played it, what was going on, the uniqueness of being able to say, oh, this is a game where you commit every day, to playing it just a little bit. Those days are over. I can't go back in time, and so I can't really recapture it. It feels like I'm a tourist. It feels like I'm just kind of looking through the window or at a picture.
It's like going back to like your childhood home, like driving down the street you grew up
It's
on.
not yours
Yeah, you
anymore.
drive
Yeah.
by and you look at like the town. You're like, oh, it's so small, and it looks
Yeah.
kind of.
Everyone moved away.
Everyone moved away,
Yeah.
and this isn't my home anymore, right?
Yeah.
And it so it's like, even though those two games in particular really had an effect on me, there's not a chance.
that you would go back. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a good.
Okay.
Animal Crossing was a good.
That was
one.
a very good answer.
I think my answer is it could be a couple of different games, but like I played a lot of MMOs in my day, of various most of them were like the free to play ones.
Yeah.
But kind of there was one that stood out in my mind called Flife.
Mhm.
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember
Fly for
Flife.
Fun.
Yeah.
And
I think that's the only MMO all four of us played together.
did we I think we played Star Trek
We played
Online.
Star Trek Online.
Star Trek
together.
Online is the
Yeah.
better
Yeah.
example from this. It's just like Flife stood out in my mind as I know I will never play that again.
Yeah.
And I pretty much know I won't play Star Trek Online. And the reason is not because they're bad games. I actually think both are fine for what they are. The reason is that I played those games because I had a big group of people that was playing them.
Mhm.
And it was,
Yeah.
even while I was playing the game, I knew I was there for that group.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And the only way I would ever go back to that game is if I got that group back.
Yeah.
But that group has drifted apart. And, I don't even know. I haven't talked to some of them in many years.
Yeah.
right.
And so that was a moment in time. But those games are both still around. I think I just saw like Flife having this like revival or something.
Wow.
And
Star Trek Online has had its 57th
it's
expansion.
incredibly
this
popular.
year.
But I feel no real desire to go back to those
Yeah.
games because
Mhm.
it was less about the game and more about the community I was in when I played it.
And that doesn't
This isn't
exist
true
now.
of every MMO, you know. If
Because some of them are really outstanding games themselves.
some of them are,
but not
I
the
think
ones you mentioned.
I've actually had a lot of fun with the game, but those were all about
Well,
the
again,
community that I was playing them with.
I want
Never
to
go
point out
home
an
again.
interesting symmetry
Yeah,
here.
guys, let's get back into Star Trek Online.
I would point
You
out
know
an
what?
interesting symmetry
If
here.
we get 100 people on
Screw
Patreon,
that.
we'll
Let's
do-
get back
we'll do-
into Flife.
We'll do Flife.
We'll do Flife.
I mentioned a single player game about the sky. You mentioned a single player game about the ocean. You mentioned a game you play by yourself, but then you invite your friends
Yeah,
to. And
community
you
oriented.
mentioned a game that you play with your friends, but then sometimes you do stuff by yourself.
We're on the same
Yeah, I was
wavelength
going to say, we're
today.
doing a
We've
weird
crossed-
division of this
we've
table
crossed, yeah.
usually.
Yep.
All right,
It's
guys.
unsettling.
All right.
We're moving on to our favorite segment, best segment. Michael B can be part of it. He came up with it.
Sure.
Games we haven't played, but we have strong opinions about.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Michael
Michael B, why don't
Michael
you
B,
start
you
us
kick
out?
us off.
Yeah,
I was gonna
come
say,
on.
Put that
you haven't
microphone
said a
right
whole
up
lot,
to
so
your
put
mouth.
that-
Game you haven't played, but you have a strong opinion of.
There's so few games
We told
you've
you
actually
2
played.
hours ago that this was coming.
that this was going to be the segment, and you still don't have. I just think of a. Okay,
Come back.
All right, we'll circle
we're
back
not
to
going to do
I'm gonna
Michael B.
kick it off.
Kick it
'cause
off.
I don't know that
Yeah,
I
kick
ever
it off.
have.
Kick it off.
And I forgot to mention before for new viewers. Once you say the game and your strong opinion, no questions.
No questions.
No one can
No
ask you.
comment.
No comment.
No, you can
comments.
comment,
No, you-
but no questions.
Well, yeah, you
no
can't.
clarifying.
Yeah.
Donkey Kong Jr. Math.
You stole mine.
I've never played it,
Mm-hmm.
and honestly, it's why I'm bad at math.
That's why you're bad.
Oh,
at
okay,
math.
okay, yeah.
Mine-
I have
Okay.
dyslexia
My
with
actual
numbers because I neglected Donkey Kong
Donkey
Jr.
Kong.
My actual one is very weirdly
Okay.
similar.
All right,
Donkey
Ty, what's
Kong
yours?
Jr.
No, mine
chemistry.
is Mario Teaches Typing.
Oh.
I've played Mario Teaches Typing 2. My opinion about Mario Teaches Typing is it doesn't exist. They
The
just
original?
made 2.
Oh, because you only did Mario
Yeah.
Teaches Typing too.
I can't find
Yeah.
Mario Teaches Typing.
Okay.
I don't think it exists.
He's never
All right,
Googled it.
Ethan, what's your?
And I never will.
Mine is Drakengard 3.
Mm-hmm.
It is I never played it, but I think that if I did, I wouldn't like the combat, but I would love everything else, and it would be like this suffering existence where I'd have to play the whole thing because I'd love it all, but I wouldn't like the combat or gameplay.
Okay, Michael
Okay.
B, do you have one?
I'll go. I'll pull some. The game Call of Duty
Call of Duty, just any of them.
should all be on the Wii.
Call of Duty should
Some
all
were.
be on the Wii. Some of them
But
were,
they
but
should
you.
all be on the Wii.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay, all right.
That's
Well,
interesting.
we
they
can't
should be
question it.
Just Dance. Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm going to say the game that I have not played but have a strong opinion about is
Yep.
Final Fantasy Remake.
Oh.
Wait, did Remake the first one or
Yeah.
is Rebirth?
Remake.
Remake is the first one.
I'm not asking you a question.
Yes, but
I'm just going to state that there's a game called Final Fantasy VII Remake.
so
No,
Final
He
Fantasy.
means Final Fantasy Remake, the remake of the original
Okay,
Final Fantasy
right.
that released on
Yeah,
PSP.
the Pixel
Final
remake. Right, go
Fantasy
for it.
VII Remake
Oh, he changed it.
is the illest omen that gaming has ever had. It when I think of it,
Hmm.
I tense up. My prostate is ibterdupted once again.
He brought it back.
Function is returned,
Right.
and I
Oh,
do
good.
not want it.
Oh.
It's frightening
Oh.
when I think about it because I think about how they took, they didn't take a game that was terrible and they said, you know what, we need to do it again. We got to do a retry. They took a game that everyone loved and
Yeah.
agreed upon was an excellent, excellent game,
Right.
and they said, we're gonna take that Kino and we're gonna put it through the meat grinder into the soylent slop that's gonna fall on your plate. And you're gonna eat it. You're gonna enjoy it because it says Final Fantasy VII, and
I did, yeah.
and now they're making more and more of them.
One more.
and more and more and more, and it'll never stop. Because guess what? Let me just tell you something right now. The reason I say that it's an omen, right, is because if they will ibterdupt you with Final Fantasy VII, they'll ibterdupt you with Final Fantasy VIII. They'll ipter-dupe you with Final Fantasy 9. Okay, they'll ipter-dupe you with Metal Gear Solid 3. They will ipter-dupe you with everything. You will have a woke DEI, everything, any kind of buzzword you can think of, version of your classic games that did not need a remake. They didn't need one. They just need to be re-released. They will remake it to frack your brain for nostalgia, and they will then, when you are finally bone dry, laying on the ground, no moisture left in your body, they will end you. That's how I feel.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, the
Goodbye.
last
Guys,
episode
I
of the pod.
I want
Power
to thank
Brothers
everybody
podcast.
for watching the Ipterdupted podcast.
And
If you're on YouTube, because that's where we are, like, comment, subscribe, tell us what you think.
Tell them what to do. Do what you want.
Do it.
Do what you want.
Thank you guys for
and
watching.
subscribe to our Patreon.
Thank you guys for watching.
Patreon.com.
Except that.
Bye.
Do that.
Do that.
Do that.
Okay, goodbye.
Thank you.